Hey, this is Executive Director 5 Danny Torr, and on behalf of National Director 7 Jason Fisher and Corporate Director 2 Sherry Lagana, we are so excited to introduce our trainer for this evening, Alan Pariser. He is a corporate director 7 with our company, not only one of the best trainers in Melaleuca, but also a very, very good friend. Alan has broken so many records that this company has and has just been such an incredible help to my family and to so many others in our company. It's just such an honor to have him with us, and I don't want to take up any more time. Alan, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm going to turn the time right over to you.
As Jason was talking about how Amway is doing and some of these other companies, and then they're not doing well. In other words, they're not doing, this year's not their best year. This month is not their best month. It's interesting to hear that because last year was our 25th year in Melaleuca. Myself and Russ Paley and Greg Lagana and Sherry Lagana and Danny Couture not too much long after that. But last year was not only our company's best year. Last year was the company's 30th year. That was our 31st year. That was our company's best year. Last year was our best year. This January, this last month, was my best month ever in the history of the company. And it's amazing to be able to be with a business, to be with a company that you can actually say that. There's not too many people that can say that. Now, some people might sit back and say, well, you know, if everything is going so great right now, what does my future look like? And some people fall into that scarcity mentality where they're worried about saturation. They're worried about everybody hearing about Melaleuca. You got to get past that. If you subscribe to that kind of mentality, you're going to lose fast. And it's not because the future isn't better than what it was in the past. You're going to lose because you just think it's not possible. The reality is that we have people who are joining today who are earning far more money than they have ever earned in the past. Now, Jason told you that my second year in the business, I made $307,000. That was the highest amount of money that the company had ever paid anybody out in the history of Melaleuca. That was back in 1993. If you take a look at what's happened over the past 10 years and the past 2 years and the past 1 year, and you compare some of the top earners in that time periods to what I earned, first year to first year, second year to second year, third year to third year, 10th year to 10th year, and so forth, it's easy to see how some of those people are earning far more money than I ever did, far more money than Russ ever did, Greg and Sherry ever did, Jason ever did, and so forth. And if you take a look at what Melaleuca has available to you right now with a fresh set of lenses, it's really easy to see how we're on track to be a $10 billion company. And the opportunity from 1.7 billion to 10 billion is so outrageously amazing. You know, Russ will tell you when he and I and Marlon and Dana and Scott flew out to visit the company before we signed on the dotted line, before we got started, we sat in Frank Vandersloot's office. And I asked Frank some I thought they were pointed questions. I thought they were serious questions. And I said, well, you know, I said, Frank, are you in formulation, concentration, momentum, or stability? You know, I came from this multi-level background, and that was my mindset. And he said, what are you talking about? I mean, he looked at me. He really had no idea of what I was talking about. And he asked me what I was talking about. And I said, well, yeah, you know, I mean, are you about to hit momentum? Where are you? He said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, but let me tell you where we're going to be. He said, Procter & Gamble this year, and this was back in 1991, Procter & Gamble did $30 billion in sales. He said, there's no reason why we can't do the same. And that was back in 1991. Of course, it took a long time for Procter & Gamble to get to $1 billion in sales. We did it in a fraction of the time compared to what they did it in. But that's where his mindset is. That's where the company is going. And if you subscribe to that kind of possibility, that kind of mentality, if you realize that right now only 1 out of 300 households in the United States is a Melaleuca customer, then you can start to get really excited about what your future is, because your future here could be far better than any one of ours. And I want to start this webinar here tonight a little bit differently than what I had planned. I'm going to talk to you about how we develop leadership with our business. But before I do that, I want to start with a little bit on the compensation plan. And so let me see if I can do this the right way. This is the first time that I'm using this technology. So can you see this okay, Jason?
We can see that perfect, Alan. Yep.
Okay, so I want to do, okay, here we go. Okay, that's still not quite exactly, well, we'll have to deal with this. Okay, so I just want to highlight a few things because you may not know what the compensation plan will pay you out today. So let me just kind of go through a few things here so you do know. Because I find that when people know, well, they get far more excited about knowing what they can earn as opposed to not knowing what they can earn. So Melaleuca came out with, I'll just try to do this one more time so you guys can see this, and that's just not working. Okay, so in October, Melaleuca added $6.4 million to the compensation plan. And it's not necessarily the amount of money that they added to the compensation plan, it's how they added the money to the compensation plan. And I've seen a lot of compensation plan enhancements over the time that I've been here, but I don't think I've ever seen a compensation plan enhancement that has been so in the reach of anybody to be able to score inside of. And as soon as this came out in October, I got back to work. And I got back to work in a very serious way. And Sandra and I, my wife and I, we've been developing director. I don't know what the total is, but we've probably, here's my guess. My guess is we've probably developed at least 10 brand new directors through director sixes. It might be 15, 10 to 15, I'm not sure, since that time. Now we're going to tell you how we did it, but the company's paid us an extra $100,000 in the 4 pay periods since they came out with the compensation plan, with the compensation plan enhancements. And so it's incredibly lucrative. So let's start with Pacesetter. Now we all know what Pacesetter is. Hopefully we all know what Pacesetter is. If you don't know what Pacesetter is, then you need to know what Pacesetter is. But basically Melaleuca is going to pay you double cash bonuses for advancing in status on a time frame. To qualify for Pacesetter, you have to watch Melaleuca's Foundations video. Please make sure you know that. Please make sure you're teaching everybody about that. But when you advance to director, you get a $200 bonus as opposed to a $100 bonus. That's the Pacesetter bonus. And likewise, every time that you advance after that. Now, Melaleuca just added a mentoring bonus. Now, what that means is this. If you are on Pacesetter, let's just talk about, I enrolled this gentleman, his name is Rob. Here's the interesting thing about Rob, and here's the interesting thing about subscribing to a scarcity mentality. Rob and I have been friends since 1996. Rob was actually a Melaleuca something or another in my business back in 1996. And Rob has been in and out of Melaleuca. Now is his 3rd time. Timing has to be everything. And I called Rob out of the blue in November. And he's like, hey, how you doing? How's it going? I'm like, fine, Rob, it's time for you to get back into the business. He's like, what are you talking about? I've done this 3 times. I said, yeah, I know, but that was when you were a kid, when I was a kid. Now you're 46, I'm 46. Let's do this the right way. Let's do it seriously. And you will be paid more now than ever before. So Rob got started and he came in with a home conversion pack and he watched the Foundations video, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But this is what Rob's taking a look at this month. So if Rob advances this month to Director 3, which he's going to do, and I'll share with you how that's going to happen, well, Rob's going to get $1,600 of Pacesetter bonuses. But as we speak, Rob is at the airport right now. He's got a buddy. His name is Brian. Brian had 5,000 people in the ACN business and only made $100,000. Now, I'm going to emphasize that again. 5,000 people in the ACN business, he only made $100,000. If you had 5,000 customers in your Melaleuca business, you'd have corporate director volume. And corporate directors with our business make anywhere from $500,000 to $3 million a year. And so I won't get into that whole discussion, but we could probably spend 2 hours just on the differences between us and all these other multi-level companies. So anyway, this guy, Brian, is going to be over here at 7 o'clock. We've got an in-home tonight. We've got five people on a webinar and 2 people are coming over. And so this guy, Brian, is going to be a Director 3 by the end of the month. Now, Melaleuca is going to pay, my buddy Rob is going to be a Director 3. He's going to get a $1,600 bonus. And he enrolled Rob. So, pardon me, he enrolled Brian. So Melaleuca is now going to pay everybody not only your pay setter bonuses, but they're also going to pay you mentoring bonuses on your personals. That means that Brian is going to get to Director 3 by the end of the month. Rob's already made his $1,600 in pay setter bonuses, and Brian is going to get his $1,600 in pay setter bonuses. And so my buddy Rob, his check is going to be $3,200. At least. It's going to be more than that, because in order to become a Director 3, a pay setter Director 3, you need to have how many personally enrolled preferred customers? You need to have 11. And Melaleuca is going to pay us now a 50% commission on those 11 customers in our first 3 consecutive months. So, he'll probably make an extra $300-400. So his first check, Rob's check this month, because he has 1 personally enrolled pay setter Director 3, his check won't be $3,200. His check is going to be probably more like $3,600. This is big money, because it's big money not just in terms of how much money he's going to earn 2 months ahead of his pay setter schedule, but think about this. He's going to earn $3,600, and his organizational volume will be $2,500 to $3,000 product points. So Melaleuca is actually paying out, in this particular scenario, well over 100%. If Russ were here, he would give us the exact mathematical numbers, probably 105% of what he is producing for the company. Why can Melaleuca pay that out? It's really simple. They know they have a 96% reorder rate, and those customers who are ordering in the future, they know that they're going to get their money back. Now, this doesn't have to stop. In this scenario, Rob got to pay setter Director 3, and Brian, one of his personals, got to pay setter Director 3. But the interesting thing is that Brian's dad, who was also enrolled 3 times, is enrolled again. And Rob's dad wants to build a Melaleuca business. But let's say that Rob's dad this month got to Director. We'll add another $200 to Rob's check. So now Rob is at $3,800. Let's say his dad got to Director 2, add another $400 to Rob's check. Now Rob is at $4,200. It doesn't stop here. You can have as many people as possible who are going to hit these statuses that are going to add income to your checks. Now, the new compensation plan will not only pay you your pay setter bonus and a matching pay setter bonus on your personals pay setter bonuses. That's called the mentoring bonus, but they will also pay you a matching bonus on your personals. Now, I know that this can get to be a little bit confusing, but if you add all this together, this is how I can help anybody make, anybody make about $10,000 within their very first 90 days. Seriously, and this is nothing past what all of us did, and when I'm talking about all of us, I'm talking about myself and Russ and Greg and Sherry and Jason and Danny. We all did this when we first joined the business. We didn't have these statuses back then. We didn't have the nomenclature back then. We didn't have these bonuses back then. But if you get to pay setter Director 5 within your first 90 days, pay setter Director 5 within your first 90 days, you're going to make $3,600 of bonuses. If you have 2 personals that get to pay setter Director 3 within your first 90 days, that's another $3,200 of bonuses. And then each one of those pay setter Director 3s are going to have a personal director. 2 of those are going to give you an extra $400. If you add all that together, that's $8,700 plus $1,500 because you've enrolled 20 personally enrolled preferred customers. And if you included your 7% commissions and you included your 20% product commissions, you are well over $10,000. Now, I'm not here tonight to talk to you about how the compensation plan works. This is not necessarily a compensation plan tutorial. If I'm going too fast, I'm positive that the Time and Freedom team has all these kinds of tutorials that can go through this with you so you really understand what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to paint a broad picture for you. And the broad picture is that anybody here can make far more money than anybody has ever earned in the past. Sandra and I have, as an example, a husband and wife couple. Their name is Di and Carlos Collado, and they've never been in this kind of business before. She's a stay-at-home mom. She's got 2 kids, and he runs the MGM catering department here in Las Vegas. And they got started with us part-time in September. They got off to a slow start. They enrolled 6 customers their first month. In October, they really started to kick in. To make a long story short, they just advanced to Pacesetter Director 6. Pacesetter Director 6, and they've already made over $12,000 within their first 4 months, 4 pay periods, part-time. Not professional networkers. They're just hitting it with, they're now focused. They should be senior director by the time we go to convention. And I don't remember ever a period of time that we could bring somebody into the business who's never been a networker, who's doing this part-time with a little bit of vigor and has made $12,000 within their 4th pay period. So when you really understand what's available here in terms of how much money you can earn through the new compensation plan, and this isn't it. There's a lot more to the new compensation plan, because when you get to senior director, now you're within you get profit sharing. And when you get to executive director, there's even greater amounts of profit sharing. And the bottom line is that if you help a personal get to senior director within 6 months, you're going to make $59,400. And if their personal gets a senior director Pacesetter, pardon me, let me back up for a second. I'm getting too excited. If you have a personal that gets to senior director within Pacesetter timeframe, 12 months, they're going to earn about $60,000 to $70,000. You will get a matching bonus of about $59,400 for every personally enrolled Pacesetter director. And you'll also get matching bonuses on their personal Pacesetter. Senior directors is who I'm talking about here. So there's never been a period of time where you could earn more money by mentoring people and developing leadership in your business than today. Now that brings me to the point of my discussion with you tonight. And my discussion with you tonight is how to develop leadership in your business. And this is something that we've been doing, all of us have been doing now for a very, very long time, for 25 years. But it has never been more important to develop leadership today than ever in the past. And I'm gonna toggle back and forth between a couple of things and just give you some real basic ideas of what we do to develop leadership. And I think the very first part of developing leadership, developing leadership is this principle right here. It's the power of recruiting up. Because you can't develop any leadership unless you're enrolling people that really want to build an incredible business. And the challenge that we all face when we're building a Melodica business is that we want to enroll a lot of people. We want to enroll a lot of people very quickly. And sometimes we don't go after the right people. Sometimes we go after the low-hanging fruit. And we could get into a huge, long discussion about creating our contact list and creating a contact list that have really good people on it. Not just your refrigerator list, not just people like your mother, your father, your brother, your aunt, your uncle. Yes, you could get to director right away with those kinds of folks, and everybody should include them on your contact list. But it includes people that are, I hate this terminology, the terminology better than you, because that's really not the case. But you certainly want to enroll people or go after people that might be in your mind or in your mindset. You might be a little bit afraid to contact them. They might be on your chicken list. They might be up the social ladder. They might be up the economic ladder. They might make more money than you. They might have a greater social position than you or a greater job position than you do. Nobody's better than you are, but there is something about going after people that are harder to get. Now, nobody's impossible to enroll in this business. And Greg and Sherry and Jason and Danny and Russ have proved that to be the case. They are bringing in some absolutely unbelievable people. But those are not necessarily the lowest hanging fruit. Some of these people, it takes a little bit of time to get into the business. This gentleman, Brian, who my buddy Rob is going to the airport today to pick up, was on Rob's chicken list. And I kept telling Rob, I'm like, Rob, stop enrolling these easy people. Stop enrolling your ex-girlfriend and stop enrolling her ex-boyfriend and all these easy people. Go after some people that are on your chicken list. Go after some business owners. Go after some people who've been in with multi-level marketing in the past. Go after some Amway people who are feeling a little bit of the pain. Go after some of the Herbalife people who are in that business for 2 years, 3 years, who have a taste of what it's like or the dream of what it's like to have a residual income, but they know that their business model is being squeezed by the FTC or that it hasn't worked out for them. Now, sometimes when I have this conversation with the people that I'm mentoring, they have like this mental block because they have this perception that those people would not be interested. In fact, I had a buddy of mine over here on Friday night, and I'm sitting down and I'm talking to him and his wife, and I'm trying to explain this concept to him. He's having a hard time with his business, even though he's done this really part-time since October, and he's made over $5,000. Hasn't done anything in December, hasn't done anything in January. He's super happy with his Melaleuca business. He's made $5,000 of bonuses, and he has a residual income of about $500 a month right now. But getting him to see past going after the low-hanging fruit is a big challenge for him. He has this perception that the multi-level people that he knows wouldn't be interested in this because they tell him that they're making all this money. And I just looked at him and I said, I said, they can say whatever they want. I know the truth. I said, they're not making any money. Well, they're driving the big cars and they're not working. And I said, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. I said, let me ask you a question. Alfredo is his name. I said, have they ever showed you a check? And he looked at me and he's like, well, no. I said, well, do you think if they were really making the 20 grand a month, they're telling you that they're making you, that they'd show you a check? He's like, well, maybe. I said, no, it's not maybe. They would be pasting it on their forehead and they would be showing it to you all day long. I said, have you ever seen anybody's business report? And he said, no. I said, Alfredo, why do you think I show my check in my business report every single time I do a presentation? And he thought about it for a second. And I said, forget that question. Is there any doubt in your mind that Melaleuca works? And he said, no. He says, I know it works. He says, well, I said, well, why do you know it works? He said, well, first of all, I've made $5 grand part-time. And I know it's been really part-time. And he says, second of all, I've seen every one of your checks and your business report. And I said, bingo. I said, you know that it works because we believe in full disclosure and sharing what we've earned. I said, these MLM guys that are purporting to make all this money, they've never shown you a check because they're not making any real money. So I'm not sure if the light bulb's ever going to go off in his head, but I'm making it a big point for you guys because the light bulb should go off in yours. If you want to start scoring big in this new compensation plan, you have to kind of force yourself to go after everybody. And please understand what I'm saying. You need to go after everybody. Now, this month in February, I'll just give you an idea. This month in February, we'll develop a Pacesetter Director 7, a Pacesetter Director 7, 3 Pacesetter Director 3s, I think a Pacesetter Director 4, and we'll have at least 2 or 3 brand new Pacesetter Directors, okay? Now, in January, we enrolled 6 customers. In January, we enrolled 9, and so far this month, we've enrolled 2 customers. Now, in December, in January, we developed a Pacesetter Director 6 and a Pacesetter Director 3. But those Pacesetter Director 6s and Pacesetter Director 3s came from people that we enrolled prior to December. The 9 that we enrolled in January did not advance in status at all last month for whatever reason. Now some of them are going to advance in status this month. That's a part of the advancements that we're talking about, the Pacesetter Director 7s and 4s and 3s and so forth. But as I dissect those people that we enrolled, many of those folks are just customers, and all that they're going to do is simply be customers. And a handful of them are going to be business builders. Now, we wouldn't have those business builders if we prejudged who was going to build and prejudged who was not going to build, because quite frankly, some of these people who are building are a complete shock to us, an absolute total complete shock to us. And some of these people who we thought were going to build, Some of these people that we thought were going to build are just going to become customers. So I know this is all 101 kind of stuff, but this is really, really important to remember as you're building a business. Don't prejudge. And as you're working on your contact list, get out of your comfort zone and go out there and find people that have the possibility to build a massive business. This past Saturday, I went to a networking event for a bunch of motivational speakers here in Las Vegas. And there was the featured speaker. Actually, I was texting Danny. There were two featured speakers there. One of the featured speakers was a drummer, and he's a professional drummer. And he is now playing for Cher, but he got his start with Richard Marx back in 1986. And he was a drummer for Billy Idol, and he was a drummer for Bon Jovi, and he's for all these big bands. And here's this guy, and he's transitioning. I mean, he's got to be like 63 now, and he's transitioning into public speaking. So I got his card. He's on my contact list. The featured speaker, I won't tell you her name because I know you'll go try to recruit her before I do. But her biggest speaking paycheck was $1.8 million. And I've got an appointment with her next week at Standing ELC. I don't know if she's going to enroll or not, but man, think about it. If she did, holy cow, she could be a corporate director in a year, or maybe she'll just become a customer. I have no idea. But I know that in order for me to continue to move my business forward, this is where it all starts. It starts with a knowledge of the compensation plan, and it starts with the ability to create a solid contact list and not be confined to prejudging people and thinking some people will and some people won't. Now, let me clarify this one step further. This doesn't mean that all that I do is go after networkers. This doesn't mean that all that I do is go after public speakers, because that's just not true. I mean, there was a guy that came over here to fix something in the house, and I sat him down and I did a presentation for him, and he enrolled and he's a customer. So we contact everybody. Okay, now, having said all of that, let's talk a little bit about the system that I go through to help somebody get to these leadership statuses. This is worth talking about. Characteristics of high potential prospects: people who are positive, people who are entrepreneurial, people who are achievers in other businesses, people who are recognition seekers. This is a really big one. You know, a lot of times people think that the big motivator is how much money is somebody going to earn. And that's a mistake, because people work harder for recognition than they will for money. And that's really the case. So, you know, if you know a lot of people who are out there and who donate their time, if you know a lot of people are out there and they work for charitable causes, they do it for different reasons, mostly to help, or hopefully to help humanity, but some of them do it for recognition. You take a look at those people who've been stuck in Amway or stuck in Avon for so long. They're kind of stuck there, not because they're making any money. They're stuck there because of the recognition that they get. And so those could be great people in your business. Hardworking, trustworthy leaders, people who are successfully discontent. This is who I love going after. I love going after all these folks, but people who are successfully discontent, people that are making $50,000 to $300,000 a year, people that are 40 years old, 45 years old, that had big hopes and big dreams and big wishes and thought that the world was going to be their oyster. But now maybe it's not. Maybe they lost their home in the last recession. Maybe they are about to retire and they can't. And you know, so that's who we all go after and who we look for. Here's a blueprint of what to do with someone once they come into the business. And I'm going to take you through a 5-page sheet that we created. It's called our Getting Started Plan with somebody once we've identified who they're going to be and if they're going to be serious about building a business. Now, keep in mind, not everybody is going to build a Melaleuca business. In fact, I think it's fair to say that if you enroll 10 customers, 1 to 3 of those are going to go ahead and build a business. Now, sometimes it might be 50%. Sometimes it's 10%. But if you're enrolling 10 customers and none of them are building a business, you need to ask yourself a few questions. Why is that? And always one of the big reasons why that is because you're making a product approach as opposed to a business approach. Yes, there's time for product approaches as opposed to business approaches. Or you are doing a presentation that is just all about the products and it's got nothing to do with the business. And so you might need to tweak that. Or you're going after the low-hanging fruit. And you're not going after the pearls. So if you've enrolled 10 or 20 or 30, and remember, everything has value. Everything is a learning experience. Don't sit back and say, oh my goodness, I'm going to fail at this. I've enrolled 30 people. No one's building a business. No. That's not the right attitude to have. The right attitude to have is, okay, I've enrolled 30. They're all customers. They're loving the products. They're drinking the coffee. They're washing their clothes. They're brushing their teeth. They're going to be here for the next 300 months, 25 years, just like we have customers who've been there for 25 years. But I need to make some tweaks in the way I'm approaching this, the way I'm presenting this, and then you're going to have a different kind of business. So 1 out of 10 to 5 out of 10 is what you should be looking for in terms of who's going to build a business. And in that, don't give up on some people just because they didn't get a fast start. One of the people who will be a brand new director this month for my wife Sandra, her name is Mona, and she is a spiritual leader of something. She's spiritually, that's wrong. She's a healer. So she does massage, and she has these crystals, and she has these rocks, and she's a really nice lady, and she's into essential oils, but she's been a Melaleuca customer for about 6 months. So she's off Pacesetter, and the reason why she hasn't gotten started is because she just opened up her own center, spiritual healing center, and she's put a ton of money into that, and that has been her focus. But as we've scored on this new compensation plan, my wife's been really smart in following up with her, and she's now ready to build a business. So she's going to be a brand new director or director 2 this month. So here's some simple and essential steps to keep in mind as you're going to develop a director. First of all, you need to make it your mission. You need to make them your mission. And that's really important to keep in mind, because a lot of times what I find is that people want to succeed here, and they will not succeed unless the enroller, the mentor, the support team doesn't rise to the occasion and make their success their mission. And make no mistake about it, if somebody wants to succeed here, they need your help. They don't know what to do, especially if they've been in a multi-level company before. They absolutely don't know what to do, because they're going to do it the way they did it over there, and they're going to fall flat on their face here. Or if they've been in a traditional business, they need your help. You need to make their mission your mission. And you're going to get paid for it now than ever before. I mean, think of it this way. If you get a personal to senior director on Pacesetter time frame, well, they're going to make a ton of money that's going to change their life, but all in, that's going to mean a $50,000 to $60,000 bonus for you. This new compensation plan not only makes their mission your mission, this new compensation plan makes their success your financial success. There's never been like this in the past. So make their mission your mission. You have to understand what their why is. And this is absolutely crucial. And I'll show this to you on the sheet of this document that we've created here in a moment. They need to get a PAC. We'll talk about that. And listen, I know that today the compensation plan, the Pacesetter program is just tied to the foundation's video, but we didn't have the Pacesetter program when we first got started. Greg and Sherry and Russ and Danny will tell you, we didn't have a Pacesetter program. There were no extra bonuses, but every one of us started with a career pack, which is what it was called back then. And every one of us had 2. One for us to use and one to have on hand for that person who wanted to build a business to walk home that night and use the products. And even today, we still have this. In fact, I've got 2 home conversion packs in my meeting room right now, and I have a value pack in my meeting room. Why do I have 2 home conversion packs? Because I sell twice as many home conversion packs as I do value packs. Why do we sell packs if it's not connected to the bonuses? Because the bonuses are not what this is all about. The building belief in this business, building belief in these products is what this is all about. Now listen, if you want somebody to succeed, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you become a leader, and this is where they follow. If they're not willing to buy a pack, it doesn't mean they're not going to build, but let me tell you something. In my mind, if they don't buy a pack, I make a little mental note. Maybe they're not really coachable. Maybe they really don't want this as badly as they say that they want this. Now, some of you might sit back and say, well, Alan, you don't remember what it's like to be broke. And that's just not true. I remember what it's like to be broke, just like it was yesterday. That feeling will never leave me. The worry, the concern, how am I going to feed my family? I mean, when I got involved with Melaleuca, I was trying to figure out how to contact whoever made Pampers and try to get a bulk discount because I couldn't afford to put diapers on my kids. I've been on food stamps twice. I'll never forget that feeling. But I also understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. And I mean, I learned this way back when in my New Skin days. You can sympathize with somebody or you can empathize with somebody. If you sympathize with them, they're not going to win. If you empathize with them, they're going to get it and they might stand up and take control of their life. Sympathizing with somebody is this mentality. It's the mentality that says, yeah, I understand you're broke. I get it. I'm not going to make you buy this pack. That's the worst thing you could do for them. How are they supposed to have belief in our products, belief in our company, unless they get these products in their home and tangibly use them? You might say, well, they can't afford to buy it. Well, let me help you understand. I had a lady who came to my house yesterday at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning. We had an in-home scheduled. Nobody showed except one lady who saw a presentation 3 months ago and who wanted to come hear another presentation. I said, forget it. I'm not doing another presentation for you, but I'll do a little bit of training. And I walked her through what I'm about to walk you through here in a second. And I said, let me ask you a question. She said, I'm totally broke. I said, that's fine. I said, do you buy soap and shampoo and toothpaste? She said, absolutely. I said, great. So this isn't going to cost you anything extra, is it? And she said, no, because I know I got to buy that. It's all a wash. I said, fabulous. I said, can you afford $19? She said, yeah. I said, you have to buy a pack. She's like, I can't afford it. I said, let me ask you a different question. You have any kids? She said, yeah. I said, yeah, how many? She said, 2. What are their ages? One's 10 and one's 5. I said, great. I said, do you have a job? She said, yeah. I said, if I went outside tomorrow and I put a stiletto in all 4 of your tires, would you go to work? She's like, yeah. I said, how would you get there? She said, I don't know. I'd find a way to get the money to put the tires back on the car, or I'd get a cab or an Uber or whatever. I said, exactly. I said, this is the same thing. I didn't have the money when I got started, but if you want real belief, you need to get a pack. And she got it. That's the difference between sympathy and empathy. Now, hopefully that makes sense. You need to know what their goals are. You need to help them create a contact list. You need to do some role playing with them. And you need to help them create their store hours. Now, I went through this a little bit earlier with Jason, and this didn't show up so well. But this is the meat and potatoes of what we do with people. If you can't see this perfectly, I'm going to walk you through this. And I guarantee that the Time and Freedom team has something just like this. This is
clear as day, Alan. By the way, it's clear as day now.
Oh, great. Excellent. Fabulous. So this is our getting started document. And if you want this, I'll be happy to send this to you guys. There's no secrets here. After I've done a presentation, I sit somebody down and I say, okay, I'm going to go through this with you. This is how we're going to get started. And I print this out for them and I walk them through this. And I said, this is yours. I want you to write this down. I want you to take this with you. I'm sorry. I want you to take notes on this. And I said, the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to go home and then give me a reason why you're building this business. And I explained to them, we're going to work together. We're going to be partners together. And what I've found in the past is that if I know what your why is, your emotional leverage, if I know the reason why you're building this business, I can better mentor you, help you, coach you, and motivate you when the going gets a little bit tough. So that's kind of like their homework assignment. And then I say, okay, now this month I want to know, how much money do you want to make? Do you want to make $500 or $2,000? I just want you to tell me, because either one of these is a big possibility this month. And they pick it and I say, great. You want to make $500? You're going to have to enroll 8 customers. That's a director. You want to make $2,000? Well, we're going to have to get you to director 3. And that means you're going to have 11 personally enrolled preferred customers, 1 director, 2,500 in volume, which is 25 to 60 total customers in your business. Are you up for it? Because I want to get some buy-in from them right then and there. Now, then after they answer that and I know what their immediate goal is, then I ask them a different question. I say, well, take a look at these incomes. What amount of income would change your life and make you stop? Well, yeah, if I made $96,000 a month, and I say, forget about that for a second, because that's dreams and that's wishes and that's fine and that's great. But if you were making $5,000 a month or $11,000 a month, which one of those figures would make you comfortable? And I want to know this because I find that when people hit a comfortable income level, that's kind of when they stop, which is fine, but I just kind of want to know what that income level might be so, I know what their long-term target might be. So then I say, okay, great. We've identified how much money you want to make and what your immediate first month or second month goal is going to be. I need you to identify what your business hours are. You work full time. Well, I want to quit my job. No. You're not going to quit your job. There's not enough for you to do right now to quit your job. So you're going to start this part-time, and I can help you get to director in 10 hours. I can help you get to director 3 in probably 25 to 30. So you need to tell me what your store hours are, which days of the week, and which hours per day are you going to commit to your business. So what we're doing here is we're creating a business plan. And then what I want them to do is I want them to go home and create their contact list. Now, I don't spend a lot of time going through developing a contact list because I've got a lot of other things to do. So we have in our website, and I'm sure you guys have in your website, a video about creating a contact list. So I'm going to point to them that video so they can go home tonight and they can watch that video. And then I'm going to go to the next page. Now, I am going to spend a little bit of extra time on this page. This is one sheet. I'm not going to go through approaches on this training because that's not what this training is all about. This training is all about what do I do with people to get them off to a fast start to develop leadership in my business. So I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes on this piece of paper, making approaches, what works. Texting, e-viting, Facebooking, emailing, those approaches do not work. They just don't. Yes, you can use Facebook to get reacquainted with people. Yes, you can use LinkedIn to find people and Twitter and all that's great. That all has a purpose. But I know without question that when my guy comes back to me and he's approached 10 people and they've all said no, that he's made text approaches or he's Facebooked approached those people and it just doesn't work. Now, there's always an exception to the rule, but I want to teach them the rule, not the exception. And the approaches that we teach are partners specialize, help and show. How can I help? And what I do is at this point, I get a handful of people from them. Who are the first 5 people that you want to contact? And we do some role playing on this so they kind of get what I'm talking about. And I go through the objections, the normal objections that we get, how to handle those objections. And then I point them to our video in our website about setting appointments like a pro. And I want them to watch that. That's a 17-minute training that I put together about how to approach people the right way. Now I'm spending time with this person because they want to build a business. They're a category 2, they're a category 3, and I'm going to help them get to director 2, director 3 by the end of the month. The next page is instructing them how to set up their online Meluk account, that they have to watch the Learn to Earn video to get their $100 of products for free. And you know what? You'd be surprised at how many people get to director but never watch the freaking foundations video, and they get a $100 bonus as opposed to 200 or 200 instead of 400 or 500 instead of 1,000 or 800 instead of 1,600 in their first month if they got to director 3. So I make it a point that they know that they have to watch these things in order to score. This is where I go through the importance of a home conversion pack or a value pack. And I emphasize that they get a 60-day money-back guarantee. But if they're going to build this, this is absolutely critical and necessary for them to become successful with. And I have one in my office if they want to take it home with them right then and there, and most people do. The following pages, director this month commitment. Listen, if we enroll 8 to 10 customers this month, you're going to get your picture in the Leadership in Action magazine. You're going to create a compelling story that's going to motivate others. You're going to get this month's promotion. Last month it was the iPad Pro or the Surface Pro 4. This month it's $500, and you'll be invited to our next month's leadership celebration. We just had our leadership celebration on Saturday. We had about 50 people there. It was great. Everyone had a lot of fun, and people will work for this. I I make it a point right here to point them to the direction of Director 3. You can make $2,000 in your very first month. If that's too fast for you, we'll do it in month 2 or 3. But we definitely want to get you to Director 3 right away, and we definitely want to get you to the 2020 Club right away. Now, as far as presentations go, you're not doing any. It's easy to learn, but you're going to have me do your first 10 presentations for you. Now, I got my buddy Rob in the other room right now. I can hear him. And I got his buddy Brian in the other room. And I got another guy in the other room, Dave. And these are all business people. They're all perfectly capable of doing a presentation, but I'm going to do all of them for them so they learn how to do it. And I want to know when we can do a few presentations, in-home presentations, one-on-ones. We do webinars just like you do. And we're going to put a schedule together of when I'm going to be doing all of that for you. Don't do any presentations. I don't train anybody on presentations until they're a Director 3. How do you enroll your new customers? I'm going to do that with you every step of the way, but if I'm not available, all you have to do is dial this number here and get on the phone with the company, and they'll do a 3-way call, and they'll take all the information for your new person. Now, I'm really clear with these guys. Look, I'm creating a partnership with them. And this is the system that we use, and this is a system that we follow so they can learn how to build the business. Once they're Director 3, Director 4, Director 5, they're on their own. They've duplicated this, and they're moving their business forward. But they're not going to be able to learn how to do this unless we teach them. And if we don't teach them, then they're not going to be teaching the people that they brought into the business how to become successful. So we get them set up with our website. I know you guys have your own website. That's great. We give them all of our contact information, all of our social media information, but we also make sure that they have all of Mel Luca's information, because there's going to be times where they're going to have a question about the products. And quite frankly, I don't have the time to answer every question about the products. I had a lady who called me earlier today. She's enrolled 2 people in 9 months, and she wanted information about how to enroll a nonprofit and everything. And I told her, and then she had other questions. And I honestly don't know much about nonprofits, because I don't think I've ever enrolled one in 25 years. And I said, Cindy, you got to call customer assistance, and they'll help you. So they have all of the company's information right here at their fingertips. Not only that, but they have all the company's social media websites at their fingertips. So, when they go out and they do their research, that they don't just see, those ding-dongs out there who say that they couldn't cancel, but they see all the credible stuff about Mel Luca and how Mel Luca's changed people's lives and everything else. So this is the process that we go through. After a presentation, we take this 5-page document out. We go through every single one of these pages, not with everybody, because most people want to become a customer, but the handful that say they want to be a 2 or 3, we walk them through this, and then we get to work. And getting to work means doing presentations and enrolling customers, and doing presentations and enrolling customers. And that's what we do over and over and over and over. And the beauty of this new compensation plan is that if you engage in these activities, you're going to get paid far more than you've ever gotten paid before. There's not a single person on this webinar that cannot give themselves a $50,000 raise this year, or a $200,000 raise this year, or God bless Jeff Miller. Last year, he gave himself a $1.3 million raise. And how did he do it? Well, he went out and he created 5 brand new senior directors in a year. God bless him. Okay, so Jason, I've got to start a presentation here, but I might have like 2 or 3 minutes to answer some questions if anybody has any questions, or if you have any questions.
Alan, absolutely unbelievable. Sherry, I'm sure you absolutely agree. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Alan, I don't think we have any more questions, to be honest with you. That was on point. We appreciate your time. I know you have a lot of meetings that are going on. So thank you so much for being on tonight's webinar. This was absolutely an amazing training, and I'm sure everybody got so much value out of it tonight. So thank you again, Alan.